And do you want them to sit?
As you name them, they go to you.
To the further? And where will I sit? Far end. Okay, guys, okay, so I'm going to sit on the far end. I'll go there immediately, and then as you guys pile in.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the moderator of the next session, Teri Schultz.
Hello, everyone. This is a nice, quiet room compared to the main stage yesterday. Thank you very much for joining us here this morning. My name's Teri Schultz. I'm a journalist who's been covering the European Union and NATO for more than 15 years, and I'm very happy to be here today to talk about priorities for the new EU leadership in the coming term with a very stellar panel who I will now call to the stage. First, Martin Dvořák. He's the Minister of European Affairs for our host, Czechia. Thank you very much, Martin. Maida Gorčević, the Minister of European Affairs, this way I think is what they had hoped for. Minister of European Affairs of Montenegro, Maida. Marko Štucin, State Secretary for EU Affairs for Slovenia. And Danielsson, he's the State Secretary for EU Affairs for Sweden, and relevantly to our panel has worked in DG near and enlargement for the last decades. Thank you very much to my panel. Thank you for being here. So I can hear my mic making strange noise here. Am I the only one? Okay, I hope I'm taking care of that. So we're starting with these Slido polls, and we wanted to ask a question, what our audience believes should be the key priority for the next EU leadership. Now, in terms of this panel, we're going to be focusing on enlargement, but for this word cloud, I'm happy to take any ideas that you have related to enlargement or not, and we'll be showing them up here. And I have this second laptop here on the poll. So we'll be getting a word cloud of what our audience believes are the top priorities. But going with the enlargement theme here, Martin, you personally, and of course, Czechia has been an advocate of enlargement since your first presidency, and certainly as we briefly discussed, the presidency of the second half of 2022, Czechia very much hoped that this would be, you would be able to take big steps related to enlarging to the Western Balkans. Of course, the war, Russia's full-scale war in Ukraine, put a bit of a damper on some things there, but at the same time, enlargement has moved ahead to include Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia. So let's talk about now where you think enlargement should be, what you think can be done in the nearest terms with regard to this very important goal of the European Union.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. Oh, sorry.
So this is okay.
It wasn't me.
Security. Yeah.
Security. Sorry. It's working already. I'm off.
Yeah. And I wasn't moving. Yeah. Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
There
it's
we
working. Go. Okay. So first of all, thank you for coming and for your interest about future of European Union and Balkan and enlargement and everything. You are right. The focus on enlargement, especially for Western Balkans and also then called Eastern Partnership, was the idea given by very beginning by our President Václav Havel, and since that I think we are still among the biggest promoters of enlargement. And yesterday, I guess Mr. Edi Rama said I should thank to Mr. Putin every day because he focused on this issue again, because you almost abandon and forget about us, Balkans. So I think it's true, and we are now facing the consequences of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, which bring us back to the question, what should we do for better future of secure and independent European Union? And then that's we reopen or we come back to this issue of enlargement. And I have to be absolutely frank. I am honorary citizen of a Kosovo city, so I'm not very objective. I'm part of the problem. So, but anyway, I think we should really think about enlargement and in vis-a-vis with the situation in Ukraine is even stronger issue now. But on the other hand, we cannot afford to forget about the necessary criteria were given to the entering into full membership of EU. We have to ask our partners or potential new members about fulfilling of all of the criteria, including rule of law and all of the reforms and changes what are necessary to be done. I can tell you now I am pretty active in the area, and I'm visiting a lot of Western Balkan countries, speaking with the people, with the government, with the opposition, with the different ethnic groups, etc. And I am regrettably seeing some kind of growing frustration.
In the candidate countries?
In the candidate countries. They are losing the trust. We really want to to give them the full membership, to have them in. And there might be some kind of misunderstanding, because I know my dear Balkaners, and they are sure and certain that they are doing the best. They are doing a lot of changes, changing the rules, changing the constitution, whatever we ask, but we are still not satisfied. I mean, as EU, and they don't understand it. From my point of view,
can I just say, is this particularly true in Albania and North Macedonia, who have been sort of up to the door,
yes,
told it's going to be unlocked, and then...
I'm speaking about North Macedonia, I'm speaking about Albania, but also Montenegro and Bosnia. All of them are less and less satisfied with the approach what EU is showing to them. Am I right? No, but we are in some kind of schismatic situation, because on one side we really need to enlarge European Union and make it stronger and resilient. On the other hand, we cannot afford not to ask responsibility for changes in legislation and in the environment, the political environment. I attended one panel in Balkan, I don't know where it was, maybe Ohrid, and there was a proposal then very fresh made by President Macron about the gradual accession. And the leaders of Balkan states were asked, what do you think about gradual accession? They refused, each by each, everyone. And I was a little bit surprised, because I think this is the way. We have to keep the Western Balkaners, as well as Ukraine and Moldova and Georgia, on our side. We have to give them some hope that they really will be members once, and they will be part of our family. On the other hand, we have to send them the message that is not possible without 100% fulfilling of acquis and every conditions what we are giving to full membership. In this point of view, I think the gradual accession is a good solution, because in every single successfully finished step could be some kind of reward for everyone.
Could we just clarify what you mean? Opening chapter by chapter rather than once everything is done, you're in.
Okay. Exactly. This is opening chapter or finalizing the chapter. You give some reward, maybe roaming, I don't know, some small step that giving some message, you are on the right track and you will be awarded. I think Montenegro could be a good example. They are on very good track and doing well, and I think they should be some kind of good example for others. On the other hand, everybody knows that the situation in Western Balkan is very complicated, and we cannot afford to leave this area, because if we are not there, then somebody else is coming, and we know it. It's Putin and maybe China and maybe Turkey, whoever, and it will be just extending the situation in which we have very near to our border some kind of tension or unrest or something what could be pretty dangerous, and we cannot forget about Russian influence via church, via different politicians, etc. So this is very complicated. That's why I'm saying we are not ready at the moment to accept full membership. On the other hand, we have to keep them on the right track, to work with them, to collaborate with them, to help them, what we are trying to.
Okay, I think that's a perfect lead-in for you, Maida. And I also had asked you in our speakers room: are people getting tired of the wait? Do people feel that you're being needlessly delayed and that you have done everything you need to do? Where is Montenegro? I'm more familiar with the cases of Albania and North Macedonia, as they have been, of course, much more sort of acrimonious in Brussels.
Well, the answer is yes and no. The voting, because if we are speaking about the process of, look, Montenegro is in this process for 12 years, and there were some ups and downs when we are speaking about the process of negotiating. We closed 3 chapters, but there was also some period of time where we didn't do much. This is the both way street. It's not only from candidate country to European Commission member states. It is also the forward information that we are getting back from the member states, if they are really for the enlargement, if they are really seeking to have this European Union completed with the other candidate countries. As I can see here on the board, the security is one of the issues. But if you want a secure European Union, you need enlargement, and you have to have all the Western Balkan countries part of it, and also Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. Only in that way, European Union, as it is, which is fully with all the countries, can be secure enough. So the enlargement is first because of the security, which is one of the reasons why. I must say that like I said, there are ups and downs in every candidate countries, but also in the European Commission, in the enlargement process and everything else. The good thing is that we see now that the enlargement process is really live. After a new government in Montenegro, in less than 10 months, we finished to get a positive EBAR, interim benchmark report for the chapters 23 and 24. With this new methodology, even the fact it is really harder to say so for any candidate country, it is also something that member states can, through this new methodology, see what are the reforms that we are finished. And the first thing is the rule of law and chapters 23 and 24. If you don't have moved in 23 and 24, you cannot move in any other chapters. That's why this was the biggest issue and the biggest deal and the goal for Montenegro to get EBAR now in June on IJC in Brussels, where all member states saw that Montenegro really showed the progress in rule of law area. But we didn't stop there. Now we can speak after getting EBAR, now we can speak about closing benchmarks, and now we can speak about the closing chapters. This is really a milestone, not only for any candidate country, this is really a milestone for European Commission. With this new methodology, this is the first time that European Commission actually is doing it with any candidate country. So in that way, it is really encouraging if we get good, positive feedback, not only from European Commission, but from the member states, that they understand that any candidate country is moving forward. I'm very happy that I can see from the Western Balkan countries and from Ukraine and Moldova, because they already got IJC in June with some of the progress, which means that we are all trying. I see that Bosnia and Herzegovina opened accession negotiations, which is really, really good for this process, because I think that Europe needs all of us to go forward, and we need to go forward because of us and because of the European Union. If we move forward because of the reforms, because we need that for ourselves, it's something that it will just bring a value once we get to be the next member of the EU. So I must say, yes, we are exhausted. Yes, we are having a lot of challenges in this path and on this way. Yes, there are a lot of challenges because as a small country like Montenegro is, we don't have enough experts to help us in closing the chapters, for example. We don't have enough financial support that we can, as a country, do it by ourselves, for example, for the environment, agriculture, etc. So in that way, we need the help from the member states to show that they are really for the enlargement and to help smaller countries to be better in their reforms. So in that way, yes. the frustration in our administrative capacities, in administrations that are 12 years negotiating over something. And from the other hand, still believing in European values, still believing that our place is in European Union, and still trying to make step by step closer to the EU. I think that we will never give up on this path, and I see that that we are every day closer by that. So I must say that we are always repeating, even the fact that I know the member states and European Commission hates the dates when any candidate countries say, okay, we are going to be the next member of the EU by that and that year. But yes, I can see and I can feel that we can use the momentum because of this global situation to become the 28th member by the 2028. The symbolic is great.
It's a good slogan.
It is everything is going on our hand. I think that we are using the momentum inside our country, having great political stability and momentum, and also using this, how to say, global issue when we are speaking about security, that really Europe needs new candidate countries. So.
And my question, does the average Montenegrin follow this chapter by chapter? Is this written about in your local press? Because in some countries it is, and in Turkey, this was where the public opinion turned many times and has gone back and forth. But does the average person then feel closer to the EU, more interested in becoming part of the EU, or feel shunned by the EU based on what happens with the chapters?
Well, our citizens, when we are doing some polls in Montenegro and everything, the recent poll a couple months ago, 80% of our citizens are seeing Montenegro as a member of the EU. We are already in NATO. We are already use euro as a currency. So everything is in our favor, actually. For me,
and is security the big reason?
Yes, security is one of the reasons, actually. But also being a NATO, we already feel secure. But now we are seeking and seeing also some of the steps that are very important for us. For example, this, how to say, in phase to become the member of the EU. For example, I must mention the growth plan and to be the part of the single market from one hand. Then now we applied for the SEPA, which is also the great thing to promote some of the things before we become the next EU member, to promote and to be the part of the how to say, values what European citizens are seeing. With those steps, I'm certain that in the good communications, our citizens and support can just rise and not get lower.
Marko, Maida brought up a good point that the European Union has had to reform itself, looking at different ways that you communicate with the candidate countries, that you open chapters, that you close chapters. How important is it that the EU itself reforms its processes on accession, on integration, at the same time as it's looking for the candidates to reform themselves?
It's extremely important because what happened in the last couple of years is that we basically, wanting or not, killed the enlargement process. So what Montenegro is doing is enormous. They put enormous effort in their progress, and I sincerely believe they will achieve results. But if we look in the very concrete steps in the enlargement process, meaning opening and closing the chapters, in the last 3 years, with all candidate countries, how many chapters do you think were opened or closed? 0.
Yep.
So no chapter was either opened or closed with any candidate country for the last 3 years. We are talking a lot about the enlargement, but in the reality, the real steps are not happening. There's a lot of preparatory work, a lot of reforms being done in the candidate countries, but nothing is happening in the concrete terms. So if you're asking if we need to reform, of course we need to reform, because with the process we have at the moment, nothing will happen. I sincerely wish for Montenegro to enter EU next year if possible, but with the process we have now, it will be unfortunately very hard. And why? That's the question. Why? The process itself does not. It's not problematic for the candidate countries themselves. So for the candidate countries, it's clear. You have the acquis, thousands of pages of the acquis, and then you have to adopt your
Just thousands.
just nothing
It's
special.
easy, actually.
It's easy.
Translate them first.
You
right?
have to adopt the acquis, right?
Yeah.
But what is complicated with the process itself, and not even complicated, but I think it's impossible, it's that basically every step you have in the process requires unanimity of everybody in the EU. So everybody needs to agree on every single step that is happening with every single candidate country. And then, of course, you have neighboring countries. Sometimes the relations are a little bit more intense, and so you have a bilateral problem that need to be solved, and so on. But then also you have member states that, well, for the general reasons or for their internal politic purposes, they simply dispute the progress in particular candidate country, even if this progress doesn't really bother them particularly. But because their voters would probably not award the politicians that would be for, then they simply say no. So
Or used as leverage on completely unrelated issues as well.
Exactly.
We see this all the time too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And with the enlargement, we have a serious, really serious problem, because we may be talking, as much as we want about how, we need to enlarge, but in the reality, nothing is happening. Now, just one thing I want to stress. We put on the table, Slovenia put on the table together with Germany a proposal so that for the steps when you're opening the negotiation chapters, you wouldn't need the unanimity. So that a country A decides to not agree, this wouldn't prevent the candidate country to open the chapter. Why we think this is a logical solution? Because opening the chapter doesn't mean you're fulfilling the criteria for this chapter. Opening the chapter only means you're allowed to negotiate on this chapter.
Seems a low bar.
So it is a very low bar, but it's not really a closed session. But my opinion, even if we propose it, I don't think it will fly. This proposal, but then we have to ask how to reform the process in other ways, because we need to reform.
Interesting. Okay, Christian, he just told me that he first worked on enlarging the EU to Sweden itself. And
or Sweden to the EU, yeah.
Sweden to the EU, yes. And then since then worked on getting other countries in. So when you listen to the experience of Balkan countries, Eastern European countries, you helped create some of these processes, reform some of these processes.
Yes.
What are the priorities now? What is going wrong, and what could be changed to make things go better in the very near future,
why don't
like
we
now?
talk about what is going right? And I think looking on what is here, security, competitiveness, I think that...
People can't see that. You can't see our word
No,
cloud.
it's a lot of stuff. The security and competitiveness
Yes,
is
security
at
and
the top.
competitiveness are the biggest ones.
Are the biggest ones.
Yeah.
And I think that is a good reflection on
Thank
where
you.
the whole issue of enlargement is right now. 24th of February 2022 changed completely the situation.
Yeah.
The Germans would say Zeitenwende, I think. And I'm now State Secretary for EU Affairs, so I follow the European Council very closely. The kind of discussions that there are in the European Council between the leaders on enlargement is a completely different discussion that was there before. And it is an imperative, I would argue, among member states that enlargement will take place. Of course, Ukraine has been the focus, but it's also a fully recognition that it's not only about Ukraine, it is Moldova, it is Georgia, and it is Western Balkan. And the argument that comes up there are the geopolitical ones, namely the fact that this is the strongest foreign policy instrument of the EU, that we have a fundamental interest to see to that, if I can use the term, Western Balkan is fully stabilized as a member within the European Union. And there is a recognition that this is also to do with our ability to take on the major challenges we have. We are better seated with Western Balkan, Ukraine, Moldova close to us and members to take on the climate change, to take on the competitiveness, to take on the issue of migration, to take on the issue of fighting terrorism, and not least to see to that not others are there, because they will be there if we are not there. I think this is driving the issue. So that's the positive side of it. Now, I was there for a certain period, I could say. I remember vividly I was in the cabinet of the Swedish Commission in 1998 when the Commission presented something called Agenda 2000. That was highly relevant for you, for some of the people in this room. And I tell you frankly that the discussion then, although not exactly the one we have now, but it was fairly similar. Will we be able to do this within the EU? What about all the different elements and the reforms within the EU? But what took over it was the political imperative. We need to do this. And in the end, it landed on a process which led to your membership, and others are in this room's membership in the EU. I, for one, believe that we are at a similar point now. And I think we will see the next Commission coming in and having this very high up on the agenda, reflecting on how that political momentum that we have out there can be translated into a process which leads to the candidate countries coming closer and ultimately becoming members. Now, elements in that context is going to be, if we look on the candidate countries, I think gradual integration is one, namely to see that part of the benefits of membership will come before you become member. Roaming is a good example. But there's an interest of the EU here, because if we can see to, for instance, that we get a more integrated energy market, it's in our interest, member states. If we can see to that part of the internal market, although not all of it, can be more integrated with the candidate countries, it's in our interest. So there are interests in common interests that are there that will be out there. So I think issues like that will come in. I'm not so... I mean, you're right that, of course, we can always look on the way that the negotiations are being performed. But the reason why we have had all these blockages is primarily that we haven't had the political will to go ahead. I was Director General for this kind of exercise in 2014 when Juncker presented the clear message that there would be no enlargement during this Commission. Of course, that led to less of enthusiasm to move ahead among the member states. Now it's different. I agree that there might be some issues that need to be changed, and I think your suggestion on the qualified majority was, for our part, for Sweden's part, a good suggestion. But as you said, it was difficult to move it forward. But what I think we need to have in mind on the same time is that the candidate countries needs to take this opportunity. It's good to hear what you say about Montenegro, but honestly, looking around in Western Balkan, it's not the same message coming out of all the member states. We often hear, of the candidate countries, we often hear that we are not getting the right messages and we are not getting the right thing from the EU. Well, we have also waited 17 years. so there is an issue of the candidate countries to take this seriously. And I'm struck, for instance, by some of the candidate countries where the ability to argue for the EU is rather limited or even negative. And that, of course, is not going to help in the process forward. Fundamentally, there needs to be an openness to do rather difficult reforms that is going to be painful in terms of those who are in the lead in some of these countries. And politically, that kind of challenge needs to be taken on by the candidates, because in the end, it is the own merits that will be the one that is going to determine the speed of the process.
Okay, thank you very much for this opening round. I want to open the floor for questions as well, but also offer my panelists a chance to ask questions of each other, given your initial interventions. You were nodding your head a lot there. Would you like to go back in and ask Martin? And anyone who has questions, please signal, okay. And we have microphone, a couple here. Let me have Martin go ahead and
I will have some kind of maybe a little bit sarcastic or pessimistic remark to the reforms. I'm a little bit afraid that even if we are anonymously speaking about necessity how to enlarge European Union, make it stronger and involve the Western Balkans and European Union, there are some powers or people, or how to call it, entities, they don't want to have any real enlargement.
Yep.
And this is why they put in this debate the question of changes of treaties. And I think the debate about we will cancel the anonymous voting by anonymous voting is nonsense. So I think one of the goals or duties what we have in front of us is to find the mechanism how we can avoid or stop any misusing blackmailing by veto right by some members, and still to protect some small countries against the overvoting. This is a big challenge. I think there are some at least technical issues how to solve it. I think it's possible, for example, to enlarge the veto right for not only one, but maybe two, maybe three countries. Seeing the development in some of us, maybe two is not enough, maybe three is not enough. But anyway, this is one of the issues. Maybe also could be involve some rule that if you'd like to protect your national interest by veto right, you should declare what kind of your national interest is in danger. Because at the moment, everyone can just say, I'm against, and that's it.
Or
And this is-
national security covers everything. Or
So I think if we are really thinking seriously about enlargement, we have to make some reforms. On the other hand, I'm a little bit afraid that all the debate about reforms is just a barrier against enlargement. What I'd like to say is we can make some reforms without enlargement, and also we can make some enlargement without any reforms. And to be absolutely fair, I am in minority in the Czech government. Czech government is at the moment keeping the position that we are strongly against any single change of treaties. To be absolutely fair, I am more open, but Minister of Interior is agreeing with me. But both of us, we are in minority in the Czech government.
So I wrote down something that Edi Rama said yesterday. He said that EU officials constantly say that, of course, Western Balkans belong in the EU, but they don't really believe it. I mean, he said this on, openly, publicly yesterday that, we've heard this so many times. We don't believe that they believed our future is in the EU. And if you think that some member countries believe this, then of course you don't believe that everyone's going to let you in, or certainly help you in.
Yes, exactly what I was saying. We cannot afford to let them alone, let them behind. We have to keep them on our track. We have to give them some hope, and we have to find the instruments how to keep them on track. I'm not sure whether we do have any already. But I really wish all of my Balkan friends to be members of EU as soon as possible. Maybe not 28.
And that's speaking
maybe
only.
Not 28. I'm not sure, but I wish you the best, Maida.
And that's speaking only out of self-interest. I mean, would anyone else like to come in before we take questions from the audience?
Well,
Maida?
I must say that for Tango needs to, definitely. And it is not only enough if one candidate countries or all candidate countries are moving forward if there is no feedback from the other side. So in that way, this is not only the technical process. This is process where you must rely on each other, where you must trust each other in the future. Because as I understand the position of the member states, because they need to know which country is going to be in the club with them there.
Fair enough.
So in that way, I'm certain that better communication when it comes to from our side, what the reforms are we doing is something that will help the member states once when they are making a decision over should someone move forward over opening, closing chapters and everything else. I agree with Marko Štucin that even the fact that we opened all the chapters, I think that this is something that can make a difference for other candidate countries, so they can move much faster, because this is also really a slow process. For example, I know when we were working on getting an IBAR, it was really, how to say, so-called a project, not only for European Union, but for us as well, because the most Googled thing in Montenegro was what is IBAR, because every politician, every person, everyone were speaking about IBAR, and that is a milestone for Montenegro, for any kind of country. That's why it is really important to communicate much better and to really reform if you are really wanting to be the next member. Once again, I would like also to underline the thing that the good thing is this merit-based approach, because in that way, if you are not looking, for example, Western Balkan countries as a package, and you see each of us that are making the difference in everything, and if you are a package, then no one is going to be competitive enough, and no one is going to try much more. Someone can do more or less. Now, when it is a merit-based approach, when someone can be a front runner like Montenegro, it is at this moment, we are going to be the one who is going to pull the others, and to show that if we move forward, anyone else can move if they are working very hard.
Good point. Sir, you had your hand up. I'll take both of those questions. Direct them to one of the panelists if you wish, or to everyone as a whole, and please tell us who you are.
Sure, San Vasilev, former Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance of Bulgaria. So we went through that process 15 years ago now, 17. But maybe to share a thought, the two enlargements that happened, first was Central Europe, there were 4 countries, or 6 coming together. And then it was Bulgaria, Romania coming after that. And our experience, at least, was that having another country to go through the process with together is actually quite helpful. But my question
But
is...
not tied.
Not tied. No.
That's
Just moving through the process together. Not tied, I think, is critical for the Western Balkans, and that's actually my question to Montenegro and some of the panelists. Looking at the process from the outside, it seems that some countries do not actually want to join the European Union because they do not want to do the reforms.
Some candidates.
Some candidate countries. And some countries want to do the reforms and want to join the European Union. And my question is, shouldn't the process actually acknowledge that fact and work a lot more intensively with the countries that want to do the reforms and join the EU, and basically say to the countries that don't want to join the EU, look, when you're ready, give us a call, but for now we're not going to pretend that the process is going forward.
When you're ready, give us a call.
Okay, that's and let me take the other question. And
Milan Nič, German Council on Foreign Relations. I have one question to State Secretary Štucin. What's your plan with the non-paper on reducing the veto, the use of veto in the accession process? It was, I think, good idea to try to put it to the negotiating framework with Ukraine, Moldova, but it was not even in the Commission's proposal. So that is a fight that is lost. What is the next step from your position?
Okay.
And if I may, a very quick question to Christian Danielsson. We had discussion at SAI session yesterday on this. And the whole discussion in this panel just underlines that the whole enlargement methodology from 2020 doesn't work. It's from other world. Montenegro can tell you that they had to fulfill, and this is a government that is now delivering, and they had to go through 83 interim benchmarks in chapters 23 to 24 to be able to start closing other chapters. It's crazy for Ukraine, for the good of Ukraine and Moldova and others. Please make the argument that this needs to be changed, and I'm asking the member states here at this panel if there is a pressure on the Commission, this outgoing Commission, to include reform of this methodology in the enlargement report in October.
Okay, in the interest of time, is there any other question in the room? Because we have 9 minutes left, and I think that's going to take up the rest of our time. Okay, so each of my panelists, please answer completely all of those 2 questions that you got. Well, I mean,
I wasn't asked.
One was okay, but certainly, I mean, all of these are interesting. You can certainly answer about countries that don't want to join.
I wouldn't say that some country doesn't want. Maybe some leadership or governments of some countries doesn't want to be involved and doesn't want to be reformed. I'd like to be very frank. I think the last big enlargement, I mean 2004, including Czechia, was maybe not the best example how to do it, because now we are facing the activities of some then appointed or accessed members. They are now making so much troubles, and it could be a very bad message and a very bad feeling for the especially old members. They are now a little bit afraid that with a new enlargement they will get a new troubles what we are now giving by ourselves. I mean, before members, I don't mention any specific country yet. So I think this is a trouble, one of the troubles, because we, with our behavior within EU as a new members, brought some old members to the feeling that maybe any other enlargement is not a good idea.
And do you feel also that attention should be focused on the countries that are delivering, like the Montenegrin government? I'm
a big fan of Montenegrin. I'm not among those who are saying it was enough, but just saying that even our behavior as a new members could be one of the reasons why now is a less affinity to other enlargement.
Okay.
All right, Maida.
Well, if I may, I can only answer in the Montenegro from the side of Montenegro government. We are ready, we are showing, and we are having a result. So in that way, I cannot answer in the name of other countries. But like I said before, I think that we must all be very open and in a dialogue and in showing, not only sending, okay, we are for the EU. No, please show that you are with all the reforms and everything else. And besides, when Mr. Nich asked about the new methodology, I cannot answer is it working or not at this moment. I will answer on that question by the end of the year when we plan to close the chapters. If we succeed to close the chapters with all these how to say, because this with the new methodology, I must say it is 100% harder than it was before when it was the Big Bang 20 years ago, and not only about the IKEA translation and everything else, but about the interim benchmarks and now the closing that we are speaking about. Is it asked from any candidate countries? It is really, really hard. It needs a lot of time. It needs not only the technical assistance, but only the political one, because in that way you need to have the support from the political parties, from the parliament, from the whole society, and also besides that to negotiate and speak about with the member states, so there is no any blocking, and also European Commission administrative capacity. So it's a mess, but we succeeded with EVAR. We succeeded that with European Commission. I cannot say it's not working. It's working, but it's hard for the candidate country. I'm certain it is really hard for the European Commission having in mind to organize and coordinate everything. But once we finish closing chapters, and we plan that in December this year, I will answer much more on those questions. But maybe for the member states and Mr. Danielsson, who was in charge in the European Commission and knowing the process much better than I from that side, maybe he will give you the answer on your question.
Okay.
On the, is it working?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. On the question who wants the enlargement and who don't, we had recently a very good discussion with some colleagues that are very active in the region of Western Balkans. And, you know, seeing all the messages in Brussels, so the enlargement is a geostrategically important for European Union, but then asking who really wants it. Do member states really want it? I mean, if you go country by country, you easily see that there's no big appetite in reality for the enlargement.
Really?
If you if you go through the Western Balkans, and I really exclude Montenegro because you're a very good example.
It's because I'm here, actually.
The reality is many representatives of the political leadership, current political leadership, doesn't really want the enlargement.
Even after the full-scale invasion. I mean, honestly.
Look, everybody who is in power now is in power for a reason. What will happen when their country will join EU? Maybe somebody else will be elected then. So, but I can answer you who wants the enlargement, and this answer is completely clear. See, all the citizens of the candidate countries, they want the enlargement.
Yep.
They may be, you know, lured by the political party in the rhetoric. Oh, we hate Brussels because they promise something and they don't deliver. But if you ask any parent from the region of Western Balkan, when do you want your kid go to university? I mean, it's Paris, Berlin. I mean, nobody will tell you, I want my son to go to study. I don't know. I will not name the countries, but somewhere not in Europe.
Which is also sometimes a deterrent for the member countries when you hear this kind of thing, right? That you don't want brain drain from the regions that you're integrating.
That's brain drain. We only have 3 minutes, but brain drain is one of the reasons why current EU member states are not really honest about this, because we profit from the brain drain.
Yeah.
That's
right.
how it is.
But overall, you don't want, I mean, this is not a good balance. This is
overall, I mean, for Slovenia, we are very close to the Western Balkan region. For us, this is a strategic, really a strategic importance. And we really, you know, we calculated how much we will profit with. When Croatia joined 10 years ago, our trade went from 2 billion to 8 in 10 years. So this is the, you know, the real profit we have and Croatia had from the enlargement, from the neighbors. So this is, we all profit from it, we gain from the enlargement. To the concrete question on our non-paper, yes, we will now proceed after the summer break to really try to lobby the member states to have as big group as possible to join this group. We will still try with the inclusion of the mechanism into the negotiating frameworks. The idea is also to consider the possibility to enter it into the existing negotiating frameworks. It needs another IGC, but it's possible. On the second parallel track, we have a working group also thinking about other possibilities how to streamline the same processes, because I'm really afraid, speaking openly, that at the end of the day there'll be 2 or 3 member states blocking this idea. So the idea is really to have other ideas also as well, and then to try to bring on the table as much as possible, and with sincere idea to speed up the enlargement. So that's the goal. How we will do it at the end of the day, it's not so, it doesn't really matter so much, but the idea is really to reform it in a way to have concrete changes in this opening negotiations phase.
Okay, thank you. And Christian, if you could sort of wrap in all of these themes again, as somebody who's been there since the beginning, well, not the beginning, but early on in the process, hearing the stumbling blocks, but as you say, also the successes. Montenegro may be one of them.
No, I think on the reforms,
the reforms.
Clearly reforms needs to be made, and it will be made. I think it would surprise me if the Commission didn't come with the ideas in the next year or even before on that issue. And I think it's good that you are pushing on it. But that is not going to solve this. It's going to be important, but it will not be the major issue that is essential in my view. I wouldn't be too concerned about the public opinion in the member states. If we would have done a consensus in 1998 about the enthusiasm for a number of countries who joined in 2004, I'm sure that you would have had a majority saying not so good. So that is something I think we should wait until we are at the stage when it's necessary for those that are necessary. What my concern is what was brought up here, how to get the real momentum in the candidate countries. And there I think the issue of own merit is essential. There needs to be countries that are showing that this can work. And to be perfectly honest, I hear what you say about difficulties with the process. I was Director General for enlargement for 7 years. The reason why we did not do more progress until 2020 was primarily because the reforms were not done in the countries concerned. That is the reality. And we can always ask ourselves why that happened, but that was the reality. Now there is a momentum, political momentum, and it needs to be taken by the country concerned. And therefore, what is happening in Montenegro is very, very good. And if that could be then moving forward as fast as your own merit gives you, and that could then inspire the others. The big difference with this enlargement and the one in 2004 was that I think you wanted to get out of a system. Whereas there seems to be the case for some of the leadership in the existing candidate countries that they're perfectly happy with the system that is there. And therefore it's difficult to get that moving. And that leads me to the issue of public opinion. And there I think that's where the gradual integration is essential. We need to be able to show for all these citizens in the Western Balkan who wants to be part of the EU, that there is something coming out of the process already before the actual membership is taking place. And whether that is roaming or it has to do with various forms of economic support and investments, that can be discussed and that should be discussed. But that is going to be absolutely essential. Finally, we haven't mentioned the elephant in the room. This whole process has a certain link to what happens on issues relating to the relations between Kosovo and Serbia. And I think that is something that is infringing on the regional cooperation, which is so important for the Western Balkan, but it also sends a signal on this whole process that is negative, and that is something which is unfortunate. So let's hope that those two parties can come to grips with that issue as soon as possible.
Well, thank you very much. I think we've heard a lot of hope. We've heard certainly hope from Montenegro and a lot of praise, not just because you were in the room. I think some of these things would have been said without you, Maida.
Yeah, great. Great to hear that.
But I think this has been really an encouraging panel. Also, with the EU looking at its own faults here, its own need to reform, also must be encouraging when you're one of the candidate countries. So thank you very much, and thank you to our audience. I think this has been a really dynamic panel. We're not too much over time. And I need to tell you from the organizer's side that you have a break now, but at 1:30, please be back in your seats in this room for a panel on surveillance ethics. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.